to Unwound. First, I had seen this article on kids in England. In England, they're having this problem of teenagers that are out of control. I mean, they call them feral teens. And they are out in the streets and they are wreaking havoc. I mean, they're vandalizing, beating people up. It's gotten to the point that people are afraid to go out of their homes for fear of their own neighborhood teenagers. The most disturbing thing about the article were the interviews that they had with adults who lived in the neighborhoods that had the problem where it was the worst. They asked them what they felt should be done about this problem. And people were actually saying, well, we ought to round up all those kids and put them out of their misery. Nobody wants them, nobody needs them, their parents don't want them, get rid of them, it'll solve the problem. And I thought, wow, how bad does a social situation have to get that you were actually willing to do away with your out-of-control teenagers? I mean, it's one thing to say that. Where do you cross the line and actually do it? So that was in the back of my mind. I didn't have a story to tell, but it was something that was going on in the world that was troubling me. Then, completely unrelated, I saw this news report on voting here in the United States. There was a team of researchers from a university that was trying to get down to the bottom of why we, as Americans, vote for the candidates we vote for. Now, this was midterm elections, so it was Congress people and senators that were up for election. And they interviewed people and asked them why they were voting for their candidates. People gave the answers you might expect. People were giving their votes to the candidates in their political party and had their opinion on the various issues, education, health care, the economy. And as they went down the list of issues, it got to the issue of abortion. The moment the word was mentioned, whoever they were speaking to, regardless of which side of the issue they were on, suddenly got very serious. And they got adamant about their position, and they stated their position, whether it was pro-life or pro-choice. But you could tell that there was a gut reaction, there was an emotional reaction to this issue. None of the other issues had this kind of emotional reaction. So they asked everybody the same question. If your candidate, who you support so wholeheartedly, were to change their opinion on a single issue, just they were to flip-flop on an issue and announce that they now are taking the other side, would you still vote for them? And everybody said, oh, of course, if it's more than just a one-issue election, you have to weigh all the issues equally before you cast your vote. And then they asked them, what if your candidate, get to that scene, where do I go? I didn't want to have to try to figure out how I can top that. So I wasn't going to write a sequel, but then I got this idea for a character that was made up of the unwound parts of other kids, kind of like this 21st century Frankenstein. He's not made up of the dead like Frankenstein was, but yet he is made up of the living parts of 100 different kids. Who are you if you are all made up of somebody else? You know, if not even your own memories are your own, if your own memories are stolen from other people. I wanted to follow that character and go with that character through that character's quest for identity. And that became the character of Cam in Unholy. So that character really drove me to want to write the sequel. And I started writing it, and I was at about page 350, and the story wasn't done yet. Matter of fact, it wasn't even halfway done, and I realized this story is too big to fit into a single book. So I asked the publisher if I could take that sequel and divide it into 2 books, making it a trilogy. And so that's how I ended up with Unsold. But my first draft of Unsold came in at 620 pages. And it was a bit long. And also, I felt like I was rushing to get it done. I felt like the last 200 pages, I was rushing and it wasn't working as well as I wanted it to. So I asked the publisher if I could divide it again. So that's how the trilogy became a dystology. And what is dystology? It's a made-up word. Dystology is a dystopian series, a dystopian book series. We had to come up with a title. Since it was no longer a trilogy, we had to call it something. And they were going to call it a quartet or a tetralogy, which is the official word for a 4-book series, but it just didn't sound right. So I said, well, what about a dystology? And we looked it up, and no one had ever used the word before. And so we coined the term dystology. Right here? Oh, that's a tough question. What book am I most proud of? I would say that the Unwind series is the one that is the most thought-provoking and has really gotten on a lot of school reading lists, won a lot of state awards. I'm really proud of that one because it's out there and getting people to think. But on the other hand, I think Bruiser is the best written of all of this. It's the most well-crafted, so I'm really proud of that. Then on the other hand, Everlost. That whole series is the most creative of anything that I've ever written. And so I'm really proud of those. You know, I'm proud of them in all it's like your children, you know. You love them all, you're proud of them, but for all different reasons.
Do you think that the premise of Unwind could actually happen? Do you think we could actually go to war over abortions?
Do I think that it has to do with someone who has an axe to grind? There was the one time that Unwind was seriously being censored in the school district was a district in Kentucky, and the superintendent had gotten into office, and his whole platform was he was going to clean out all the bad books from the schools. And when he came in, he targeted 4 books that had just been put on the school curriculum: Unwind, Deadline by Chris Crutcher, and Twisted by Laurie Halse Anderson, and a 4th one, I can't remember what the 4th one was. And those books were pulled from the school, and they were removed from all the libraries, from all the classrooms, and it created a huge uproar. And the thing was, it had really nothing to do with the books. It was just about this guy who had an axe to grind. You know, anytime anybody has a problem with any of the books that I've written, I want to know. You know, a parent wants us to have a book pulled. They want to challenge a book. That's fine. A parent has a right to challenge a book, but I want to know what the problem is. So what I tell them, okay, read the book and tell me what your problem is. 9 times out of 10, whoever is challenging the book has never read the book. They're just challenging it based on what they've heard, based on the idea of what the book is about. Never once has anybody read one of my books and come back to me and still challenge it after having read it. So I consider, it's the reading of it. And most of the time, that's the problem. Most of the time that there's censorship, books are being censored by people who haven't actually even read the book. But I believe if you read a book and you want it, and you have a problem with it, then you have a legitimate gripe. And let's hear what that gripe is. Because I consider myself in a partnership with readers and with teachers and with parents. You know, I don't want to write stuff that is bad. I mean, I want to write stuff that is going to uplift you as readers. I take my responsibility very, very seriously. If anybody has a problem with what I write, I want to know about it. Just like I want to know about the problems with the story itself while I'm writing it. I want to make sure that I'm hitting my mark and reaching readers in a place that is going to help the world, not make it worse.